Last week I shared with you a portion of Bishop Allen's address to our diocesan convention the weekend before, in which he reflected on the need for Jesus' law of love of neighbor to guide us in our churches as coronavirus surges again this fall. He noted that there would be forthcoming worship guidance from the bishops, and yesterday we received that in a joint statement by the three bishops of the Episcopal churches in Massachusetts and Western Massachusetts. The bishops don't mandate that we stop indoor in-person worship, but they do urge in the strongest possible terms in their language that all churches suspend in-person indoor worship. I'll be meeting with our reopening committee in the parish, as well as our vestry and wardens in the coming week, to reflect on what this means for St. John's and for our worship in the time ahead. There won't be a strict switch that's flipped from one thing to another. On March 8th, we were entirely in person. On March 15th and beyond, we were entirely online. And for the past several months, we've been somewhere on a continuum, with a handful of us worshiping together in person, in the garden or in the church, and many, if not most of us, worshiping on Zoom. It's likely that this Advent we will shift back toward the Zoom direction, with just a skeleton crew of worship leaders, Douglas and I, a couple of readers, perhaps a couple of singers, worshiping in the church, but all of you worshiping on Zoom. This Sunday's worship will continue as we have been doing, and then we'll make plans next week to adjust for the rest of Advent and Christmas. I imagine that this news is not surprising to you, but it is probably disappointing. It certainly is disappointing to me. And it probably feels unfair. After all, every day I walk by businesses with safety regulations and practices much less stringent than ours. It isn't fair that schools and churches are closing while casinos remain open. It isn't fair, but it is loving. And that's what the bishops tried to remind us of, that love of neighbor, that concern for those most vulnerable must be our guiding value now. It's unsurprising, it's disappointing, it's unfair. I think more than anything, it's sad. At least for me, it is profoundly sad to face another season of the church year, another season of holidays without our beloved traditions, to face the prospect of Advent and Christmas with no singing hymns and carols together in church. It is profoundly sad. But our sadness is pale in comparison to the sadness of the dozens of families who are losing loved ones every day in Massachusetts and around the nation. 40, 50 a day in Massachusetts, nearing 2,000 a day in our country. I will miss singing with you and worshiping with you as we move toward a more online format. But I know that we will do it again. I know that if all of the Episcopal churches in this Commonwealth banding together can prevent just a few coronavirus cases, could prevent even one death, that would be a tremendous achievement for a few months' work to save just one life. So it is hard and it is sad, but it is necessary. And whatever format that takes, however many of us remain in this church, however many of us start worshiping on Zoom instead, I hope and I pray that we can worship together in the spirit of love, remembering that the Holy Spirit is with us, that Jesus is with us, wherever 2 or 3 of us are gathered, even if it's just on a Zoom window.